Much for being here with us. And this morning we are joined by the one of the deputy political leaders of the PDP, and also a candidate going up for Parler-Touvier, Lance Formey, and Speyside. Yes. Good morning to you, Mr. Farley Augustine.
Yes, good morning. Welcome to Tobago.
Listen, we love to be here, Farley, and it's great to have you on the show. And today we're just going to have a very cool, calm discussion.
Sure.
We're going to deal with the issues.
Well, and it's Friday too. You know, we like to relax things a little bit on Friday, but we want to get the information out. And you know what? My first thing to you, you know, everybody's been talking to you as a deputy political leader, and you've been making all these grand statements and everything. I want to talk to the candidate going up for Parler-Touvier, Lance Formey, and Speyside. I want to know what does your community want? What do the people in this community, these communities, what are they looking for in this election?
Well, I represent what many may consider the most rural communities in Tobago. Yeah. It spans from Castara in the north, includes Parler-Touvier, Bloody Bay, Lance Formey, a small enclave called Hermitage, Charlotteville, Speyside, right, and a piece of Delaford. Right. It is geographically the largest district on the island. Okay. It is the third largest based on population size electoral districts, right, after the separation into 15 seats. Mm-hmm. We were the smallest. Now we are the third largest based on population size, because my district remained untouched. My district is also the center for the main ridge rainforest. And so we are all about sustainable development. Yeah. How do we maintain our environment? How do we safeguard that, while at the same time bringing to people much needed development? Right. On the north side, we're looking at areas like library services. We also have several fishing communities within my district. So we're looking at how do we safeguard our fishermen when they go out to sea. We're looking at improved road infrastructure. We're also looking at ensuring that our schools, especially our primary schools, are up to par and improve in terms of performance, which means that we're looking at technological inputs for our schools. Right. And all around, we are looking to provide for my district the kind of infrastructure that will spur on tourism, that will allow for a lot of entrepreneurship to happen, and that will bring visitors to my side of the island, right, which actually is the nicest side of the island.
Oh, well, you know, some people will argue differently.
Well, certainly, and that's fine, that's fine.
Now, Farley, that is in terms of your area, your particular district.
Correct.
But looking at the entire island, because it's no secret, obviously, that you are the one that is being pushed as the next Chief Secretary under PDP. If PDP is to win. So what does it look like for the whole of Tobago?
Well, for the whole of Tobago, we're looking at transformation, which is the key term for us and has been the key term since January elections. Right. How do we transform Tobago? I've been saying to residents on this island for a while now that we ought to transform Tobago so that Tobago can become the greatest little island on the planet. And I keep repeating it, hoping that Tobagonians will believe it. Yeah. Because for all of us, we have all used the textbook example of Singapore, yeah, of how small islands, post-colonial societies can develop. Yeah. But why can't it be Tobago? Why can't it be a Caribbean society? Right. Why does it have to be Singapore? And the question is, how do we get to that place? Certainly, getting to that place is not an overnight thing and cannot happen in 4 years. Mm-hmm. But we have to start on a trajectory that will lead to robust development. It means that we have to develop a private sector, because the one we have is fragile, right, almost dead at this point, given the realities of COVID-19. We have to also treat with the unemployment issue on the island, which would have been brought on by the decimation of the tourism sector. We have to look at tourism itself, which is supposed to be our competitive advantage, right, within the country, that is, and how do we bring bodies into our island, especially international ones. But given the realities of COVID, we have to start with domestic and regional, right, tourism as our first right, input. We also have to look at some much needed infrastructural development, things that have been outstanding for quite a while. And we have a simple message, which is, let we fix this. Let we fix this in our good old Tobago Creole. Right. Because fixing these issues require the collective we the people banding together and getting it done.
But how do you ensure that that happens, and how do you ensure that everything gets done? Because some people would say these are just very open and very broad statements. But how do we deal with these individual things and ensure that they get done for Tobago?
Well, what I have done and what my party has done throughout this campaign has been to go through in detail varying sectors and what are the deliverables, what are the measurable outcomes we want for each and every sector that is important to Tobago. So that's how we run our campaign. In order to get it done, it means that as an island, we have to band together and become even more industrious than we are. And I know we have it in us to be industrious and hardworking. It will require a lot of painstaking work, because you don't get to the place where Singapore is without putting in the hard work. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come without changing some of our cultural inputs, changing some of our own behaviors and how we see life and how we view work, our work ethics and all of these things. We have to look at productivity, all of these things.
To change that? Like you're talking about the culture of people, right? How do you
even
begin that change?
And the way to start that change is through education. You have to. And I have proposed, for example, that we develop a two-track educational system for Tobago. The THA Act 40 of 1996 gives the THA authority over the administration of education on the island. And when I say a two-track system, at this present moment we have quite down-pack our traditional academic system. But what is absolutely critical at this point is to have a second track, a second tier that is parallel, that is equivalent to the traditional tier, that looks at technical vocational studies, the creative arts, for example. You know, you may be an excellent singer, but what do we have in our system to turn that singer quite purposefully into the next Rihanna? What Barbados did by accident with Rihanna, we should be able to do on purpose through our education system. And that calls for us as an island to give equal credence and importance to the non-traditional sectors, our plumbers, our carpenters, our masons, our builders. How do we push them with equal importance and equal ocean and the same energy as we push traditional academics? Because if you have to rebuild this place and have all this great infrastructural work, we don't want to have to always import the talent
to do it.
We have to train the talent here, and if we become that knowledge driven, that knowledge base, it's possible to even export that talent and to earn from that talent.
One of the things that you know we've heard a lot since we've been here, well, yesterday and today, is that a part of the problem or part of the challenge is corruption. There's been corruption, and it's part of the culture, is what some people are saying. You know, people want a THA work because they just could get a THA work, and they want a THA contract, and that kind of thing. In Singapore, you mentioned Singapore a few times in your campaign trail, and so one of the first things that they did was eliminate that. They put systems in place to eliminate corruption. But all the things that we've been talking about putting in place, we haven't discussed that. I know it's a kind of elephant in the room, because there have been lots of allegations flying here, there, and everywhere.
And it's a big elephant in all rooms in Tobago. But one of the things I did early on in the campaign was to call all of my candidates and have all of my candidates sign a social contract. Now, the social contract, which I had lawyers look at and had them do up, is not legally binding in a court of law. But I said to my candidates in the full view of the public that I'm going to hold them to this contract as a way of getting things started on the anti-corruption trail. I said to them in no uncertain terms, you violate this contract with the people, I will be bringing upon you the kind of punishment that is equivalent to the infraction. The second thing is, the THA as it is, one thing that has to happen very early on is some forensic auditing, because we have had repeatedly, time and time again, quite faulty reports with the Auditor General. So we need to determine all the areas where we have gone wrong, where we have bled resources. United Nations estimated about 5% of the global GDP is lost on account of corruption globally, and it's even worse for small island developing states. If we can nip that in the bud, if we can have transparent and open government, then we are well on our way. And another way to do it too is to add e-governance platforms, which we have advocated, bringing people on through through a platform, people should be able to use that THA app and petition the government, determine motions debated, determine questions that must be answered in the House. They must be able to see in real time our process of procuring contracts with projects, be able to comment on real time on big government contracts and big government spend, and be able to petition the government and say, no, we don't want this project, it's too expensive, and the government must listen. And to introduce that to the Tobago space, we need to introduce something that is not there yet in the national space. And my intention is to make Tobago leaders and not followers. I want you guys down in Trinidad to look at us in Tobago and become envious of how we have been able to do it. And then in turn force from your parties in Trinidad a higher standard that we have been able to demonstrate on the island of Tobago.
Well, one of the other things that has been coming up over and over again is the issue of trust. Now, trust has been a really big talking point for the people on the ground. You know this, Farley. So why should the people trust Farley Augustine?
If you look at how I have led my political career, I have done so quite openly, in a very transparent manner. To the point where there has been times publicly where I have disagreed with my own political leader. I have called him to task on some things, even publicly. I've apologized on behalf of my party publicly. Things that are unheard of from politicians anyway, because apologizing and politicians don't often go in the same sentence, unfortunately. But I believe that if I have to get the trust of the people, I have to first demonstrate within my party and outside of my party an ability to stand on my own, to be very clear in the principles that I wish to abide by, and to influence those around me to stand up to those principles. And I believe I've been able to do that over the last 5 years I've been in politics. And it is why I believe the people find me trustworthy. And I mean, anything can happen on December the 6th, but I'm pretty confident that the people have been listening, they have been paying attention, they have been tracking us all, they have been looking at my competitor, they have been comparing her with me, they have been looking at apples versus oranges, and are deciding at this very moment whether they want apples or they want oranges.
Now, let's get into something else. Regardless of the result, Monday, what is going to happen is we're going to have a Tobago where everyone needs to unite. You even said it earlier on when we were speaking. How do you plan to unite the divided?
Tobago is very small. Our population size is small. That's the domicile population size. We have more Tobagonians living outside of Tobago, more Tobagonians living in Trinidad than living on the island of Tobago. In order for Tobago to move forward, we have to have a coalition of the competent and the willing, regardless of which party they belong to. For that to happen, it has to start with leadership. And let me give you an example. When I first got into politics for the 2017 election, I went to a family in Bloody Bay, and the family wrongly rejected me. The family cussed me, chased me from the yard. Fast track 2 years later into COVID. We in the thrust of COVID, and I am dutifully visiting all my families one by one, trying to figure out what their needs are, giving seedlings and so on. And I'm back at this family's yard, and they're telling me, listen, you can't bring 5 seedlings for us, we have a whole farm. And I go back and I get crates of seedlings, I go and pick up seaweed and I transport it from Speyside to Bloody Bay and so on for the family. And about 3 weeks into assisting the family, the mother, the matriarch of the home, came and said, Farley, you know, I must apologize. I said, but for what? She said, but you know, I ran you from my yard last election, and look, you are here. And I'm telling that story so that I can demonstrate to the people of Tobago that notwithstanding our political differences, I have always been able to rise above that and be cordial even with my arch enemies in politics. If we are to divide the island completely by political parties, we will miss significant talents, because there are talents on both sides. It is painful that victimization is part of a political culture and has been part of a political culture for the last 21 years. That needs to end. And as of December the 6th, we should, as of midnight on the morning of December the 7th, we should begin a new day for Tobago, where it no longer matters which political party you supported over the last 10 months, over the last year. What will matter is that we are all Tobagonians, and the very first first people the THA must attend to should be all Tobagonians, regardless of political affiliation.
Thank you very
Thank you very much, Farley, for joining us this morning and for sharing with us, and all the best on Monday.
Thank you very much.
We take a quick break and come back with more inside in our morning show. Stay tuned.